Welcome back, everyone, to the final 3 runs of Blast the Process. And we have D4gr0n here, whom you may recognize from his runs earlier today and earlier in the marathon. And he will be doing Rocket Knight Adventures, any percent easy. And we have D4gr0n here to provide some additional commentary.
What's up, guys?
Hello.
Alright, so, yeah, just on the option screen, setting up for easy. Runs of this game typically are performed on easy, either on that or on hard mode, but you're not going to be doing that for pretty obvious reasons, right?
No.
Yeah, for those who don't know, hard difficulty in this game involves having 1 life, no continues, and everything killing you in 1 hit. You can gain additional lives throughout the run, but yeah, everything kills you in 1 hit, and you're basically expected to do a perfect run. So instead, easy mode is what we use, because there are a lot of damage boosting strats in this game, which we'll see once we begin.
Alright, so this time I'm not doing the countdown. If anyone else wants to do it, I'll go on their cue.
Alright, I guess I can do it then if you like.
Sure.
You guys ready?
Yep, good to go.
Alright then, so 3, 2, 1, and go. So yeah, this is Rocket Knight Adventures. It's a Sega Genesis game, a platformer, and it is part of the Rocket Knight series, the other games of which are the Sparkster games, also on Genesis and Super Nintendo. You may have seen those. But this is the first game of the series, and features some pretty interesting mechanics for the time. You're seeing a combination of rocket boosting to go quickly and then maintaining that speed by using a technique which is called possum hopping, which I believe was discovered ages ago by Mike89, I believe, where essentially if you're above your walking speed and you jump before your speed decays, you will maintain that speed in midair. So the bulk of the run is following this sort of movement pattern where you want to charge rocket boosts and use them to move quickly. The rocket boost is on the same key as the attack button, so you simply hold it until the bar is full, and then when you release it, you will do a rocket boost in the direction that you're holding. And that will ricochet off walls, which gives you some interesting routing opportunities, and it deals a fair bit of damage itself. The damage in this game is quite interesting, actually, as there are a lot of different ways to inflict damage. You have the basic sword swipe and the projectile that it shoots out. Contrary to what you might think, that's actually the most effective way to deal damage in this game, because there are 2 types of damage that you can inflict in this game. There is initial contact damage, which different forms of attack have different damage values, such as the sword swipe, the sword projectile, and the rocket boost. The rocket boost itself also deals variable damage depending on the direction that you're going. A diagonal rocket boost will deal less damage than an orthogonal rocket boost. But the second form of damage in the game is contact damage, which you are seeing on that mini-boss there, where there is quite a lot of lag generated, but each of those lag frames is actually additional damage being inflicted, so you actually want to deal damage efficiently in this game by rapidly sword swiping, as you deal the initial sword swipe damage, and then you deal additional damage for every frame that you have contact. You can also do the same thing with that spiral cut that you just saw D4gr0n use there, which is done by charging the rocket boost and then releasing it without holding a direction, but that is simply damage per frame without any additional damage, so that is generally a poor way to inflict damage. For the most part, you're going to be seeing sword swipes used to inflict damage. So there's been a couple of platforming sections and a couple of auto-scroller sections so far. These are the 2 main types of gameplay seen in the game, these platforming sections and auto-scrollers. There's also a large number of boss fights, which we're soon going to be getting to the first one. And it is a boss fight that, with some carefully placed attacks, will actually be able to see a quick kill on, since the boss's behavior and patterns is the same every time. It's true for virtually all the bosses in the game, so there are very heavily developed boss strats in this game. So he comes out and you can get some more swipes there. And now with a couple more well-placed hits on the right side, yep, that's a perfect quick kill. If you missed that quick kill, you'd have a final opportunity to get it as he comes back down through the center of the roof, but if you missed that, there is an extended additional phase which you can't really skip at that point. So this game also has quite a bit of a risk and reward system using the life bar. You just saw there on the results screen, there's a clear bonus and a life bonus. The clear bonus is always the same after every stage, but the life bonus depends on your remaining health. And so you want to finish every stage by having as little health left as possible, because that reduces the life bonus. And as you can imagine, that makes the run considerably riskier to go for an optimal timing. Already dispatched with the first Stage 2 mini-boss, and will soon be coming up on the second Stage 2 mini-boss, which I'm sure D4gr0n will agree is one of the most difficult parts of the game. To do quickly, at least, because there is a quick kill possible on this upcoming boss, but it requires a very precise position and some carefully placed attacks. So let's see how he does here. Yeah, that was very nicely done. So what you just saw there was the boss come on in the background. There is a foreground and background layer, so you need to start in the background, rocket boost into him as he comes on screen, take a specific type of damage boost, and then get into position so that you can follow his weak spot's movement pattern and keep sword slashing it. If your position is right and if you gain enough frames of contact damage, you end up killing him before he exits the bottom of the screen, but that is extremely precise. So that's definitely one of the hardest strats in the run to get. We have now this minecarting section. This is the next auto-scroller section, but there are certain sections of this mine track where you also need to transition between minecarts, and some of the boosts in order to do that quickly are honestly a lot more precise than they look, so this is actually a dangerous part of the run despite being an auto-scroller. These enemies will always come on at the same spots, and we're about to get to the first transition spot, which will also include a health pickup. So even though you, as I say, you want to make sure to finish the stages with as little health as possible, you also do want to make sure that you enter specific bosses with enough health to do specific damage boosts. Because since you inflict damage on bosses in this game by having lots of frames of contact, you're going to need to be able to stand inside their hitboxes to a certain degree to be able to do that, and you're obviously not going to be able to do that if you are on the verge of death. This is the same reason why hard runs, like runs on the hard difficulty, are considerably slower than on easy difficulty, not because the game itself is harder, but because you don't have the option of using damage boosting strats. So after this initial section, we're going to enter into the boss, which has 3 phases. The first phase, D4gr0n's going to want to get right up in the boss's face and repeatedly sword slash the nose. With a correct position, he'll be able to do that without taking a hit. The second phase sees him needing to kill the boss's hands as it's near the top of the screen, and in the third phase, it'll be approaching from the right, and he's going to want to just stand inside its hitbox as it approaches and hits him, since contact damage with it will deal 2 hearts of damage to him, which at this point will put him at the perfect amount of HP to finish the stage with perfect health remaining, which is half a heart. So that was a really clean phase 1 and 2, and you just want to finish phase 2 by facing to the left here, since if you're facing to the right and you try and just walk forward immediately, the game will actually push you considerably further back along the screen. So yeah, he's just standing inside the boss, using those iframes, and he gets a really nice quick kill there. That was an excellently executed stage 2, honestly. The mini-boss halfway through is arguably more difficult than the main boss, and that was really, really nice. So this run is going particularly well so far. Stage 3 coming up, though, is in itself very difficult, though. The first screen of phase 3 is filled with insta-killing lava, which constantly rises and falls. There's a specific movement pattern used to get through, including using possum hopping after the first couple of boosts, but part of the screen also has you going, like you can see there, you are above the foreground and you can't really see where you are on the top half of the screen. And being that you're supposed to use the lava as a mirror to see where the platforms are, if you want to do that section quickly and just do it blind, it's considerably more difficult than it looks. So we now have the screen, which is, it's, I guess, cycle-based, because you have this rising and falling water level, and if you want to be able to progress through it quickly, there are certain spots that you need to meet. Right here, that's a very nifty trick used that exploits the way that the boost mechanics in this game work. Although you can rocket boost in specific directions, the behavior of the boost actually depends on whether you perform it on the ground or if you perform it in the air. If you, say, perform a right boost, like you did there in the air, you will simply keep moving to the right until the boost runs out, and then you'll start dropping down. But if you do it from the ground, then you'll move to the right, and as soon as you leave whatever ledge you're standing on, you'll immediately start dropping, which is what he used there. And then since the boss arena that he fell into has no solid ground, you simply bounce around on the bottom until you reach the boss trigger. And the mini-boss itself was really well executed as well. There's a specific strat against that boss where you want to destroy the right HP amount is actually variable, depending on the arms that are alive on the boss. And so he destroyed the right arm to reduce its HP by, I believe, 75%. And then from there, you can simply use a series of very precisely placed projectiles on the main body. It is a lot tighter than it looks to get him down very quickly. But it's pretty difficult to gauge since you're constantly bobbing up and down. So after one more auto-scroller section, which you have a lot of opportunities to drop your health gradually, we get to the stage 3 boss here. The lava here deals like 4 hearts, so if you fall in lava, it is, at this level of health, an instant death. But there's a very specific method used for this boss. You actually gain a health pickup during this boss, so that you can face tank a hit and get into the correct position to get a quick kill here. Because you only have a few seconds to kill this enemy that emerges, but it doesn't take very much damage to kill, so you can get that boss done in one cycle quite easily. So aside from the death in the first lava corridor, which can honestly happen to anyone, it's very easy to take a death there. Another very well executed stage, and we're about to move on to stage 4, which I'm pretty sure D4gr0n would agree this is probably the hardest stage in the game for everything to go well. The movement is pretty tricky, the obstacles are pretty tricky, and the bosses are certainly very tricky. You start stage 4 with this mini-boss fight, with this guy who throws projectiles, and I believe, depending on how this section goes, there is an element of RNG at play here, but as long as you get these hits consistently, then he should keep throwing them in a steady rhythm, but once stuff in that fight starts to go wrong, you can't really expect it to go the same way each time. On the top of this ship, the game will continually keep trying to push you backwards, and these barrels will definitely force you to go backwards if they hit you, so it's important to know how those are coming up. That was a very nicely executed section. And if you miss any of these hanging bars here, you will also just fall to your death immediately. Same is true in this mini-boss fight, which is really inconvenient since dealing damage to this guy quickly is a lot harder than it looks. You can drop down and use side attacks into him, as D4gr0n is doing there, but this is a lot harder to perform than it looks. If you do a diagonal boost downwards into him, which is easier to land, you'll just bounce downwards and you'll immediately die. So you do need to use sideways boosts, and considering that guy is bobbing up and down continually, the location of his hitbox is constantly changing, and it's a lot narrower than it looks, so it's extremely easy to miss those and just fall into the pit and die. So that was really well executed. For this section here, the laser doors are considerably easier than they look, because all you actually have to do is hold right as soon as you enter, and time when to use sword slashes to take care of the enemies as they come. That was also discovered by Mike Hidden, I believe. As far as this boss goes, as long as you stand in the initial starting spot, none of these falling projectiles will actually hit you. And then you can damage boost to get again inside this guy's hitbox and just rapidly deal damage to the core as it opens. And then we simply have this last guy to deal with. It's very easy as this phase starts for the game to drop a lot of inputs because of the lag that's going on, so if you're already at minimum health, you can easily take an accidental hit against that guy and die, which is why D4gr0n made sure to have some additional HP remaining here. So he doesn't get a perfect life bonus, but it's well worth, especially in a marathon run, just making sure that you finish that fight at all, since taking accidental hits there is easier than it looks. So coming up onto stage 5, most of this stage is an auto-scroller, and for most of this stage, an easy run actually looks pretty similar to a hard run, because after this first auto-scroller section, and once you get into the castle, everything else in the stage will kill you in one hit, regardless of your remaining health. So in this first screen, he's just going to take specific hits at, again, specific points, and he's going to get down to what is hopefully a very specific amount of health, which I believe will be 2.5 hearts remaining, because you do want to take a single hit on the last boss of this stage, which we'll explain in a little greater detail.
Oh, maybe it's alright
as we get there. I don't suppose there's anything you really want to chip in with, is there, D4gr0n, as this is quite a extended auto-scroller section with quite a bit of downtime.
Yeah, sometimes the auto-scrolls have a weird way of making you gain and lose time. I'm probably gonna have to stop talking now.
Alright, so coming up to the mini-boss of this stage, it has a couple of different phases. First one of which you just want to inflict a bit of damage as it's coming to the left, or you cannot since it causes lag, but then you just want to sit inside his hitbox again and just keep plugging away with hits there. Phase 2 will just come on from the right, and you again just want to sit inside his hitbox and rip him to shreds. Like this. Very, very quick kill as long as you're in full contact. So from this point onwards, aside from the final boss of the stage, every hazard in the stage from here on out kills in one hit. So, like those enemies that are going there, if you contact that enemy, you just die in one hit. And the same is true for these guys, who you essentially have to race down to the bottom and reach the teleporter before they do. But as long as you know speed strats, it's not too difficult to do that. Same thing in this room, where they instead chase you to the end of the room, but once again, if you know the speed strats and if you know exactly where you need to use boosts to gain wall ricochets, you can get through that room really quickly. This room introduces a new type of hazard, which is simply the room is constantly collapsing and you need to reach the top of the room as it's coming down to you, but you can, as I'm sure you can imagine here, you can very easily get crushed if you don't manage to keep up with it. And there are certain spots where you need to use specific types of boosts to be safe, since on these long left to right sections, if you just wait to get up there and then use a left or right boost, you'll actually go too far and you'd bounce back into the long corridor part, and that gets you crushed easily, so it's diagonal boosts that are the way to go here. This upcoming room here thankfully doesn't have any hazards, but it does have a deceptive rocket boost that is a little difficult to gauge. You just want to jump off this platform after you get underneath there and do a diagonal boost upwards at the right spot, and you get right up to that teleporter, but it's a little difficult to gauge where that's actually supposed to be. So we now have this room with the very pretty glowing spike balls, which once again kill you in one hit. Very convenient. So at this point you really may as well just be playing on hard mode. And you just want to take a specific path through here. Thankfully, if you just want to get through here, there's not too much movement that's required, so it's fairly easy.
Yeah, sadly I couldn't get my health down to the right amount.
It does mean, though, that you can... Oh, actually, you can't afford to take an additional accidental hit on the boss, because I believe you're going to deliberately try and go for one dual exchange. And
Correct.
Each hit from the boss takes 2 hearts off. So if you were half a heart up, you would have an additional hit that you can afford to take. But right here, there is only enough health remaining to go for the intended hit, quote unquote. So just using another boost there to skip the final ascent section. And now you just need to run away from this giant mech piloted by your counterpart Black Knight Axle Gear and reach your own mech on the very left of the screen, and then it's the robot duel. This is the duel that I mentioned where D4gr0n is going to want to take one intentional hit during this boss fight, since this is pretty much just a straight up duel with the 2 mechs. You can just swing punches and you want to just kill him before he kills you. There is one spot in the fight where you want to aim for a dual exchange, which is very difficult to aim for, but if landed will actually speed the fight up, as it prevents him from doing a long retreat section, which he'd normally do when he's down to his last hit remaining.
And I got it.
That is a lot harder to get than it looks, so that actually saves a lot of time. On that last hit there, he just sat there and let you walk up to him. If that dual exchange didn't happen, he actually backs off for at least several seconds. But that is a lot tighter to get than it looks, because he suddenly lunges towards you and attacks himself. It's very easy to actually attack too early and too late for that. So, very nice. Coming up now to stage 6, the deep space stage. I don't know about you, I personally really don't like this stage. I think this is a really difficult stage to do quickly. You have a lot of enemy waves in this section, and the next enemy waves generally don't start until everything from the previous wave is off screen. Like, you have all these enemies that you need to kill, but they also drop health pickups, and even the health pickups need to be off screen before the next wave will start. So just getting through this asteroid belt with, again, some enemies here that fire missiles. At a couple of intervals through the stage, there's also these midway points where you try to shoot a projectile that circles around you from outside the screen, and you'll either get health pickups or enemies. And you'd think it's helpful to get health pickups, and it is, but at the same time, those do count as waves in themselves, and in order to make the next wave start quickly, you do need to kill everything that's on screen, or get it off screen. So the enemies are easier to clear in a quick manner than the health pickups are, so sometimes it's not actually better to get the health pickups. So here's Axel again, and after killing some of his allies, as you do, he just comes on and will just sword swipe him to death very quickly. Again, the sword deals incredibly quick damage in this game. And after one more round of potential enemies or health pickups, and it's health pickups, and that's what I mean about them being really easy to miss. Like, if that was an enemy, you'd still be able to get it with the sword. But unfortunately, it is what it is, and we have full health for the Stage 6 boss, which has a couple of phases. And even though we're at full health, there's a lot of opportunities to damage boost, to get down to low health by the end of the fight, as this guy attacks in a lot of different ways, and if you need to just take a lot of damage very quickly, you can always just fly into his main body, which deals 4 hearts of damage immediately. So he'll start by circling around you a couple of times, and then he'll teleport to a couple of scripted locations. And after a couple of teleports, the fight actually begins proper. So it's after the next teleport here now. So he's going to want to get underneath the main body, and then as soon as it opens up, you can just immediately go to town on it, taking a short damage boost there from the machine gun, which deals a measly half heart of damage. You now want to destroy the jaw, and this is a little random when the main body moves towards you, but that was a nice start, and okay, just needed a little more damage to kill the main body there, but that's still looking pretty nice. And the remaining health here for the final phase is pretty good. This final phase is characterized by just dodging some attack waves like this, and then dealing damage when his weak point is exposed and bounces between his hands. You need to deal 4 hits to finish this phase, and every time you inflict damage, he just goes ballistic and bounces around the screen like this, but as long as you're in the very top left corner of the screen, he actually won't hit you. So this is generally a very easy spot of the fight to do with no damage, and I'm pretty sure on the 4th cycle, D4gr0n's probably going to take an additional hit either from the machine guns or the lasers to get his health a little lower. But this is really the main thing to worry about, the main body itself bouncing around, but again, as long as you're in the very top left corner, he will never make contact with you. Different runners generally have their own preferred methods of avoiding the laser fire there, but you just need to kite it around and misdirect its path each time. So this is the 3rd cycle, so there's only 1 more left coming up. Okay, 1 heart remaining. And taking another hit just to get down to half, so he just needs to avoid this laser and then deliver the last hit. And that is the Stage 6 boss down, so another stage with perfect health management by the end. So this is honestly a really nice run so far, and we're about to enter the final stage, Stage 7. First have a mini-boss fight, which is a little bit awkward. You want to start in a really specific spot and use up boosts, which will, if you're in the right spot, allow you to hit his hitbox without actually taking damage yourself, and you'll be able to dispatch the first phase very quickly. But the real difficulty in this stage is the upcoming fight against Axel here, which I'll take a bit of time to explain here. Like, Axel's AI is really erratic, and it's meant to be very difficult to just take him on in a firefight. But there is a very specific manipulation method you can use, which I've actually done a lot of recent work on and refined in a few different ways. And if you attack him while your back's turned to you, which is possible because your sword has a backswing, then he will actually stand in place and just let you keep attacking him. If you then get him into a specific spot, such as a corner, then it's possible to have a couple of frames each hit to just chain hits back and forth. This used to be considered a task strat, but now, with enough practice, this is RTA viable, so I'm going to be quiet here and let D4gr0n focus on this. This is definitely the hardest strat in the game.
Not bad.
Yeah, that was still really nice. Just being able to chain hits at all like that is very nice. As I mentioned, each of those hits that you chain back and forth without taking damage yourself is a 2-frame window, so it's absolutely nothing to sneeze at. Just... oh, okay. Yeah, Axel Phase 2 is a little tricky, but did a bit of damage control. And the main thing here is that we have health remaining, which allows us to go for the quick kill in Phase 3 here. You want to boost at a specific point, kite him over to this top corner, and his position was just a little wrong. Ideally, he should end up inside your hitbox there and not immediately perform a spiral cut towards you, which just allows you to continue as we have been so far in the run, which is just sword swiping enemies inside, and you can actually take care of it in one cycle. But the position required for that is like really precise. So a bit of an awkward situation here where the next room is one of the most difficult in the game to get through without taking damage, and D4gr0n has 1 heart remaining, so a hit here will actually kill him. Yeah. Oh, wow, I did not expect you to still be alive there. What do you even do here? Jeez.
Oh.
Yeah, once you...
I'm an idiot.
Once you're in an unexpected spot with those enemies... yeah, that was close. Yeah, once that room doesn't go to plan and those enemies start moving around of their own accord, it is considerably difficult to actually gauge what to do there. So the only thing that really went wrong with that room is that you want to use rebounds off the enemies to get launched in specific ways, but if you contact the walls, then they cut your momentum, which unfortunately is what happened there. But either way, got through the room in the end. As I say, that is definitely one of the most difficult rooms in the game, so very easy for things to go wrong there. Entering the final boss, well, technically it's not the final boss, but it's the last threat of the run, with very little health remaining, but this guy only deals damage in very small increments, and you wouldn't normally expect to take more than a couple of hits against this boss at most. So this fight is really weird. It works by this guy exposing a weak spot. As you can see, it keeps coming out. That's the only spot that you can hit to inflict damage. And it will occasionally change spots, sometimes based on where your position is, sometimes it seems to generate them semi-randomly, although they will always try to correspond to specific types of spots. You then have these in-between phases where you just need to avoid getting hit. It's very simple, honestly. When this phase starts, the weak spot placement is determined entirely by your position. There's a specific point where he starts attacking and generates the weak spot that's going to appear, and it's always going to be opposite of where you currently are. So you want to time a jump and be in a specific spot above him so that the weak spot will always spawn below him. And then once the next phase starts, he tries a lot harder to inflict damage on you, but the weak spot is, again, always going to be on the top of him. And there is a specific method we can use here to go straight for him. I mentioned on the stage 4 mini-boss that doing a diagonal downwards boost would just send you straight down through him. The same is true here. If you do a diagonal upwards boost, it will send you straight up through his hitbox. And whilst you are boosting, and when you're helpless after exiting a boost, you actually have total iframes until you reach the ground. So that's really exploitable. One more phase here, where the weak spot is always going to be on the opposite side from where you start. Just need a few more hits here.
Good fight.
That is the last actual threat of the run done. There is one last, I guess you can call it a boss fight to come, but it's really just escaping from the TV screen in the center of that thing as it chases you through space, and it deals very, very little damage. Like, you absolutely would not expect someone to lose a run at this point, and you can't speed the run up from this point. So, yeah, if you finish that boss in a run, you know you've got it, and it's pretty much just a formality reaching the end. So we just have this chase sequence, and time is going to be after the chase sequence ends and the screen fades completely white. You're going to definitely be able to tell when we're getting to the end of the chase sequence, as the screen turns a very nice shade of red as we're re-entering the atmosphere. It was a really nice game climax, I think.
I can finally breathe now.
Yeah. Like, at this point, the runner can honestly just get away with using nothing but left and right on the D-pad. Even in a hard mode run, this fight is not particularly threatening. You have to, if you want to get through this part without taking any damage, you have to be a little on your toes, but aside from that, this really isn't a threat. The only thing to consider is that after a couple of attack cycles with these rings, he does lunge towards you, and you just want to delay your movement a little bit so that you misdirect the side that he goes to. But after a couple more attack cycles, this is going to, as I mentioned, be the end of the run.
Yeah, time is when the screen fades to white.
Mm-hmm. So it just lunges towards you one more time, and once he comes back on screen here, a small curiosity, right now he actually doesn't have an active hitbox, so you can just sit inside his sprite and he doesn't inflict any damage.
There you go, that's time.
Yeah, there we go.
Awesome. Congratulations.
Yeah, that was a really good run, honestly.
Really great run.
Yeah,
What time
unfortunate.
were we
Unfortunate about Axel at the end there, and the Hell Room.
What time did we finish on?
28:22.
Man, I'd still be really happy with that sort of time.
Yeah, in a marathon, I'll take that. I'll definitely take that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, congrats, dude. That was really great.
Thank you. I guess before I sign off, since this was the last run of the marathon for me, I just wanted to give a big shout-outs to the Rocket Knight community. There aren't many of us, but the few that are there were very supportive and always finding new time saves, how little, small, or big they are.
Yeah. With this game in particular, there's really nothing but minor time saves left, but we always seem to manage to find ways to chip off little bits here and there.
Okay. Thank you so much, D4gr0n, not just for this run, but for your multiple runs throughout this marathon. And thank you so much, D4gr0n, for providing additional commentary for this run. We really appreciate it.
Not at all. This is my pleasure. Thank you for having us.
So up next, we have the final two runs. Next up, we have Decap Attack Any Percent by Garby, whom you may remember from earlier with an earlier run. And then after that, we have the grand finale. So I'll stay tuned for that. And on that note, I have to say, I have to turn over the microphone to Liz. So I just want to say it was a pleasure and an honor to be part of this marathon, to be a host. Overall, it was great to see so many wonderful runners and wonderful people offer their games to such an enthusiastic audience. It's been a blast to be part of this process. And this is Adrian VG signing off. See you on the other side.